Dear Trey Gowdy and Fox News, you guys were child abused. They came through campuses A through Z that communicated other for James Madison his plan and how they had to counter extort and force people to take part with the Declaration of Independence and the Constitutional Convention in the Civil War. We're supposed to explain how and why our founders did not have free speech and how the only one we know the name of is James Madison. You guys don't even allow people to be honest about the extortion of George Washington because you were raised collusion slash S with that which abused you, has you predicate acts with facts roles and collusions, and or the difference of it collusions with use slash S of that by the breaching of it or of the nature. I've been asking you guys and asking you guys through the media to respond for World Trade Center predicate acts after it that shows the same names were recorded in that context and since. DACA also has rules, for example, with countries speaking about things like crimes. Why you guys are predicate acts with facts, collusion slash S, and forcing other things, others ourselves, to be blamed for things like the human fact treating nature breaching method that James Madison's actual communications is about, besides the Constitution unabridged, which is a policy, is the policy. All these countries have collusions. Oh, but yeah, but you don't know. We know about. That's what I'm saying. Then you guys are dishonest. Why do you jump in when people say science itself, nature itself is showing us we have to fight with each other and not. But the difference of that too, we have to appreciate. Otherwise, its way. Otherwise, nature demonstrates with finite, grouped, and or active, and progressive and or simultaneous demonstrations of the same thing. Because there is an identity of relativity slash hyperrelativity. And it's showing us that as we discern, when we discern simultaneously, we're not the ones generating why and how. There are a whole bunch of different species bodies besides humanity's. And each one of them is made up of a whole bunch of individual bodies. More and more forever nature, more hyper additional nature is being made. More forever nature. This is more probably and more practically, what is most sane to theorize, let alone to convict about how English was revealed to be taught. Note how English values the predicate, while law values the predicate act. Know how the predicate act. Know how the predicate is used to discern the distinct value of a main verb, and why and how we are also shown simultaneously. Why and how we need to appreciate more than one name for a verb. And that also shows us the body of the hyper invisible but still discernible to an extent. That same body of hyper invisible but still discernible distinct identity of simultaneous nature. That is not our species body, but it is not, but it is anyway, because it is all and what is not us is not the other species bodies that invented this, that is generating species bodies here and their value here, rather, or their value is forced away from here. One of the reasons the first death, the extinction, physical extinction, is distinct from this, and Earth has a special difference. The nature of logic and reason regarding the nature of debate. You guys have quality aspects of fact achieving nature as collusion slash S you can't afford to have. You have communications racketeering, worse than war crimes. That country's A through Z. You guys have shared collusions with the same countries that you guys want to call. Then you want to call each other's names of leaders because you have to pretend to be integrity at campuses A through Z. The names of the people of the sciences. The breaching method showed them they can't afford to have discerned what nature shows us about how they were brought together, tactically ulterior from how nature brings them together, and we long them to be brought together. All exceptions, the exception nature show, they come with demonstrations slash s that everyone was forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded to self-bodied roles from, for example, from suburbs there were homes that were built before America's founders were born. And there was slavery, torture, extortion, northern colonies, more than 13, and southern colonies. More than 13 colonies, northern and southern. And they had roles with slavery. They had roles with hurting every human fact should be nature sickly distinctly. And then helping it with it sickly distinctly too. And roles with that kept needs of nature styles, needed to sense for the hyperforeign breaching method of any voice would address how sickly non-distinctly too. It's not because people didn't do their homework. Why and how our campuses could get away in our faces with pretending to be against it as collusions like a shell game with people from other countries and our campuses framing our founders. Our founders left us declassified means to discern how and why they would do that as collusions while pretending other, increasingly needing to hide that in the future. The value of their jobs and careers, they have recorded how kept criminally foreign influence tactically delusions rock. The Connecticut in foreign countries recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. There's a Brian Bonin, and there are a bunch of people tied to Brian Bonin and his neighbors involved with the state judicial branch offices and all along Route 3 and conjunctions to it and to that, like where Hangdog Lane runs into Two Rod Highway and vice versa. And there are conjunctions like the Brolin Turnpike before the heart of Hartford and the Route 3 and conjunctions to it into that, like that, where Hangdog Lane and Two Rod Highway are connected. And names that and conjunctive to that and that. The same way with conjunctions to Route 3 and to that, like the state judicial branch offices. For example, we have to use the hyper evidential, but the second we start doing it, the names of the people of sciences, including of the law, including of the three branches of government and intelligence tied to them at the same time, they've been criminally foreign influence, hyper criminally foreign influence, fact, cheap nature, quality aspects of nature. Therefore, communications and relative roles with how this breaching method uses has corners of streets manifest. And a Mike Levine is further brought up by a principal upskirt nature, who I recorded involved with other natures of organized crimes with the kids, and as collusions with retired police chiefs and their families and intimate ties, also with elderly homes and with veteran homes, right where and how this breaching method knew that all individuals would have to value the names of the titles that are manifest the way they are. But now they're through systems and as systems tactically ulterior from how and why nature has manifest the value of three branches of government, the value of the campus's Marcia system of the republic for which we stand, and the pantheism that is functional. Not as many gods, but per the science relativity slash hyperrelativity to this identity of value slash value regression, discernible distinctly as a distinct identity of simultaneous nature. Simultaneously shows us nature science can be used to show us that it is functional, being how it is hyper invisible but still discernible distinctly from how it is invisible but still discernible. We are the parts of speech of English grammar about the invisible but still discernible slash hyper invisible but still discernible. The future, like the seasons, even if they never get here, their shared identity slash IES. You could discern its body to an extent, the futures, even ones that are not here, even if they never get here. You could discern the identity of the seasons past. And to an extent, they have active relativity the way we know to an extent. But we also could observe there's an extent too finite and too great. And with active relativity, to all subject treatments that anyone could ever do, if they have 10,000, every computer in the world, everyone on the same planet will never be able to be, it will always stay greater than, more finite than what we could understand. Except for one way. Except for correlation / hypercorrelation, which is what this is about. It is recorded in various ways. The police chiefs, retired lawyers, and standing, and the same with the FBI and other agencies. They have worse than criminal incompetence. And collusion / S, with the differences of guilt at the network's locations, or the names with the locations next to them. And the same ones have timed collusion / S with the use / S of the difference of that, or their rules with public television, and or their rules with Facebook. Facebook pages interbranch. And with the campuses, they have collusions with a whole bunch of different countries. And with the people with all natures of databases ties. They had collusion / S with databases, tied predicate acts, tied by a predicate acts method that has all collusions with it. You guys have self-value collusion when you replace people's ability to use the hyper-evidential, for example, having, so to speak, having black people's whites of eyes, having had that demonstrated to us, about generated for us, to communications to us, inseparable from any proper treatment of research, for example, regarding the American Revolution. See, people you want to use, I read about, you don't even know the name of it, the colonel who said, don't shoot until you see the whites of eyes. So I know more about it. Or someone wants I never read the Monroe Doctrine. Jeffrey Sachs did. See, he would want and need to offensively, too, pretend it's debatable and collude with everyone, with the government and the foreign and domestic intelligence to keep everyone from hearing anyone who makes proper treatment of James Monroe. James Monroe was the 5th president. The 4th president was James Madison. He had declassified for the rest of the founders that we don't know the names of. We know that all Native Americans. Also, if someone tries to debate that, inherent to, active to, and progressive to their logic and their nature of logic will be demonstration / S of the same. And simultaneously / hyper-simultaneously use / uses of it. Because a hyper-foreign breaching method is also hyper-invisible but still discernible. And so English was revealed to teach about how the parts of speech are about the invisible but still discernible. In our minds, we are appreciating. And to be led by that which is only perfectly appreciating and will only stay positive onto itself as a system per its definition of positive, or it forces it away from here. How do you know nature's definition of positive? Because nature shows us the difference between criminal insidiousness natures of positive. And positive that is also positive onto nature's nature. Had anyone honest been allowed to speak, everyone had known clear from youngest age. A human fact tribute nature breaching method had been entrenched, involved with the fact tribute nature, torture, extortion, and slavery of every person, therefore the physical slavery of them. People say, they want to have the nature debate. Well, look, this is my premise principle because this is all. No, Their principal treatments are all exactly with things like that need to be pretended. If you have, as everyone has, all kinds of formally recorded collusion slash S replacing with both nature and what James Madison communicated about the breaching method, that which had slavery entrenched northern colonies and southern colonies. So they apparently have rights to lie about each other with elections laws. But those readings of those statutes and precedents too, for example, they use them. And then the counters to everything. This breaching method sets things up to unfold. So the counters, it can use that to show the people that work at the three branches and or conjunctions to them and themselves, all sides of criminal and civil cases, originally and still. And the interbranch and the intelligence tied to them, foreign and domestic, they were only capable of colluding with each other with every subject treatment, every name treatment, every instance treatment, every value treatment. And this is important / hyper important because it's a distinct identity of value progression that we are shown. That is not our species body, is not the other species body, but one thing is all things anyway, while it is not. And why and how it is manifest that way is because how the rest of its complete nature does not fit with temporary / lasting space nature, except for the way that one part of itself is inseparable from all parts of itself. Like, in other words, even if you cut a piece of your hair off your head, even the part of yourself when you were a kid, all that is gone. You're a totally different body. I don't know what parts don't part. There are exceptions, but they come with a demonstration of the same thing. Like, for example, all parts of your body have a semi-nature relationship to your complete identity. And every complete identity has a relationship to that identity of value progression that is projecting to us. Means to discern its distinctly invisible but still discernible body of value progression. So I refer to it as hyper invisible but still discernible. And it's more probable and practical to theorize, let them to convict, that the ancients who revealed English taught it this way. But then a breaching method forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded people to counter things that it caused wrongly, and people to counter that correctly, but also wrongly in the sense blaming other things other than themselves for for the breaching method's roles with that. And it is manifest too. Consciously, they do things like on phones that kids and people and adults know they remember it. But if you speak about it, they also faked that. Joe DeMoro did that. Like, they were trying to make fake conversations with me and changing the communications. As one of the people I recorded increasingly involved with when I was a kid and now as an adult, fabricating police reports with sexual and medical offenders of kids foreign and domestic years apart, and with their educators behind the backs of kids that aren't even in the same classes with them. And they put kids in classes that never even have conversation in the class, don't even know each other. They try to make fake exceptions too, consciously. It's recorded collusions where there are recorded use /S of collusion /S already being and having been with all sides of criminal and civil cases. Whole careers are kept criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions are only capable of being that way, the same way originally instilled. So they can't afford originally instilled to have communicated what our founders left to be communicated for themselves and for us, and for the unabridged Constitution. Only means that we have to which we don't have it yet. We also have that screen, and every nature of difference, of their own differences and of other people's, they are and have been using that to get away with it. Part of it is how we can't leave out how each age and nature of campus has timed collusion/S with the method that's recorded. That's why they're switching names and forging names into branch. There are all kinds of recording proofs that all sides of criminal and civil cases. At least for forgiveness is about because where we can discern the breaching method and rolls with it, and rolls with blaming, forcing blamed other things, others ourselves for for things that nature has been demonstrating. That's why they attack leaders' names at the campuses. Connecticut's campuses are breached. They had roles with the World Trade Center attack, including there are proofs that foreign and domestic generals colluded, and with the Institute of War with the General King, per their roles also with changing what which caused the Civil War, and their roles with all kind of Harvard Hospital as a bunch of foreign and domestic military involved with the Trade Center attack, and translators and people like that try to investigate those things. They're out of their minds. Their collusions, organized crimes at triages right through world wars. All sides had collusions there with intelligence, with badges, who are also doctors. Readings of statutes and precedents, criminally foreign influence, tactically collusions raw. Increasingly, Harvard Hospital and houses and businesses next to it have roles with drugs and medicines and all the natures of undercover and standing positions with a whole bunch of different countries, overt criminal enterprise, private ones, acting professors. The different departments of Central Connecticut State University have roles of a whole bunch of people with interstate colleges and campuses and internationally. And their roles with the subject treatments and the networks, with the differences of the guilt of the intelligence there or next to them. They have all kinds of wire crime acts and methods with the phones in the form of fake phone transcripts, self-valued collusions. Self-valued is important because this is right where everyone's guilty is at the same time, is where and how we can discern the breaching method. Again, that replaced right from the communications of James Madison, even though it's declassified. So we could observe this, but not if we pretend that there was integrity where it was not. At countries A through Z. See, suits and ties, Connor's exception, they have the suburbs still tactically denatured. Not honest debate about that is capable of being, or it would have brought up how they were designed for a torture, extortion, fact-cheating nature, slavery method against the colonists, sickly distinctly from against the Native Americans, but sickly non-distinctly too. Also to be used functional for the breaching method, everyone leaving that out of their logic or in reason, but pretending to be about that anyway. It's technically against the law and worse to pretend to be about free speech, only to sense for the breaching method, as you've been doing, Trey Gowdy, in Fox News, MSNBC, CNN. CNN has sources at and next to Central Connecticut State University in New Britain, Connecticut, that recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. They have roles with intelligence families at UConn, involved with foreign and domestic military, involved with all kinds of natures of identity theft, fraud, things with their educators, against people they didn't have classes with, and as collusion/S with predicate acts with facts at the kids' houses, at people's houses, and on all sides of it, and against those people too. This is a breaching method that has people reliant upon valuing tactics and titles and positions and values, the way nature tells us to speak for them and appreciate them, but tactilitate from that while pretending that's debatable. Because they have to say and do anything, change out. They have collusion, changing digital evidences with whiting forensics as World Trade Center predicate acts, as their collusions also with Sandy Hook campuses, intelligence. And there are proofs next to a prison that there are people involved with child abuse, because the prison has rules with their crimes and criminals, and tried to cover up for them ahead of time, and keeping their mouth shut about what actually unfolds and unfolded at the reported crime scenes, and they're confessed. Increasingly, people along Route 3 and people in places associated with a Mr. Neville, who was my 8th grade teacher, an English teacher. My types of teachers, they individually grouped and coupled, like they influence their sense and sensibilities behind my back. And I'm not the only one they do this to and did this to. And and don't when I said, oh, please, someone respond. You know what I mean? The only people who will respond are the people that are recorded Collusion/S and with the police that have fake conversations with kids, not just me. Currently, they're still only capable of doing that because of what I caught them doing with their kids too. The kids of the people that work at Hartford Hospital, the corrections officers and judicial branch officers, their roles with the locations like the houses and buildings next to it, they have predicate acts with all location, uses of maps, uses of corners of streets, manifest. They don't even understand the extent of it. You guys aren't allowing free speech. You aren't allowing to be appreciated that different identity of value progression that is simultaneously non-distinct from all things too. It's part of how it is discernible. So when we are looking to discern why and how we are what we are appreciating, with why and how we need to appreciate more than one name for a verb, it's the same identity of hyper-invisible, same distinct identity of simultaneous nature. It's the same one that is generating totally different species bodies. So we could discern what's, to an extent, the body valuing, generating all things. Vaccines. The parts of itself are manifest, inseparable from the smallest finite detail of every other cell. And then further with grouped active relativity, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, slash hyper-simultaneously, itself, as itself. And we're not supposed to agree about the name of this, but we're supposed to agree about it to an extent. That, remember, because it's a scientific value. The body of value progression that is not our species body, is not the other species body, but is all things anyway. Where we can discern its body of value progression to an extent. It comes with its complete identity relationship to itself, and only increasing value of that too. As value of its complete identity relationship to itself too. Here, or it is forced away from here as forced space nature transfer, as lethal hadith, simultaneously as standing criminal insidiousness nature. Of positive treatments and negative treatments syntactically appreciation as actually value as appreciated. So you guys play, if you say something good or bad, all the presidents and chiefs, except for James Madison, we don't know if any of them were the founders, including George Washington. But apparently he was counter-extorted too. We're supposed to be honest about his extortion. You're supposed to defend him regarding slavery. He told you he wanted the Constitution on the bridge. We know. They forced slavery. They still had all kinds of crazy laws against everyone, only in church. Everyone was rolled with it. Therefore, everyone had been hurting each other. Everyone had been pretending they had free speech to an extent, even when they believed it. They're only capable of having it faking it for itself, or being sensed. We need to pay attention to what's actually recorded, what's actually important knowledge of good and evil, regarding history, regarding principles, regarding use/us of them, per simultaneously use/s of them now through an additional hyper invisible but still discernible reaching method. You guys won't even allow us to appreciate relativity / hyper relativity. Jump in, pretend, well, that's what's written. You guys are dishonest. It's not supposed to bring up James Monroe and Monroe Doctrine without understanding the abridgments originally instilled by people. You guys are just calling each other names, enforcing blame, where no, that's one thing that our founders wanted us to do, opposite of. It wants us to blame the breaching method. And where and how we are forced to blame other things, because now you have people killing each other, so then you have to respond to that as factual nature. They stay collusions with everything, even including little crimes too. These people that this breaching method already retired people and has standing trained in layers of motivation, nature, needs, incapable of defending their definitions and uses of appreciation of words like crimes, and affording to have discerned their roles of predicate acts with facts method /S that is involved here, with way worse than just crimes and crime methods. See, crime methods collusion /S were what the breaching method uses to measure and maintain its roles with all natures of groupings, all natures of syntax at each age and nature of fact-cheap nature, and or that body is sensed and is adapted to, including if that body is a majority of people, including if it is everyone. So it's not just how they have generals associated with the people along Route 3 and my teachers and my campuses, intercities through time, increasingly involved with Wethersfield police, with identity theft, fraud, slanders, and interbranch courts and their family members and intimate ties, collusions, refusing to identify themselves, sequence shifts, falsified police reports, rules, natures of identity theft, fraud, slanders, instances, fake motivations for it, etc. Confessions, requests for help. All that is manifest. Confessions are made to people, not the way I'm speaking about how before religious messengers were born, the people operating the names of countries A through Z, there are proofs that they were making confessions to a hyperforeign breaching method, a hyper-archetypal criminal enterprise, if you will. I'm not a lawyer. I recorded lawyers, how collusions with all sides of criminal and civil cases, how motivated to it, how they have apparent motivations, and even the real ones like money. It's not their actual motivations, because they're making confessions too. Because they're making confessions everywhere the human species body is, while they're pretending other. But relative to, again, this breaching method does things. It has people collusion /S with things, because everything it does is through collusion. Because then in the future, it has a whole bunch of people motivated to self-value roles, sabotaging the fact-achieving nature, quality aspects, nature, principal treatments then too. So intelligence at and next to Fox Connecticut News, recorded, confessed, demonstrate, confirmed. They have predicate acts and wire crime acts and methods with Channel 3 News and with the sources of WTNH, intercities and intra-cities next to crime scenes and campuses, and with Wethersfield Police, with sexual and medical offenders of kids collusions, also with fake police transcripts, fake motivations for it. They have roles with sick people, with all natures of the names of the people, the sciences, per worse. A certain type of victim /hyper victim since they were kids, but they will dishonestly allow you to treat it that way. So we have to, in other words, we have to just focus on the predicate acts and the method /S of them. And we have to understand it as a fact-cheap nature breaching method. That's one of the things, those distinct natures of laws that we know were against the Native Americans, against all human differences, male, female. So it's sickly does our own people were shown roles, needs, and natures to hide their collusion /S with all natures of investigators, criminal enterprises, overt ones, private ones, terrorists, originally and still. That as the actual value of the interbranch and intelligence tied to them. criminally foreign influence / hypercriminally foreign influence, and tactically delusions raw, collusion / S, and pretending other styles, needs, and natures as tools too, as simultaneously forcing other things, others ourselves, to be blamed for nature's demonstrations of that, demonstration / S of that. We have to be led by that which is hyper invisible but still discernible. True all ways, not leaving out the slightest exception, not valuing the fake exceptions that the breaching method already showed the interbranch and intelligence tied to them overt criminal enterprises, private ones, names that next to all kinds of crime scenes, all natures of campuses. They can't afford to have discerned by anyone with short words proper, with any subject treatment. Know how it is, but these things are inseparable from all subject treatments. How what is known that our founders declassified is self-valued being haven't been shown by a breaching method to the leaders and to the kids, sickly distinctly, but multi-front, sickly non-distinctly too. They need to self-value rules with that and pretend other as a style, need and nature as collusion / S, or sense anybody other, including if that body is majority of people, including if it's everybody. So forgiveness is another thing too. Don't leave out the breaching method with guilt with things, because it has not left with rules. It tactically designed the suburbs to force, tactically denatured to force people onto value nature systems like needing water and things, even now through plastic, even though we know in the back of our minds the whole ocean has mercury in it now. They're all the fish have all mercury in it, and the whole ocean, and then the fresh water has PFAS, forever nature chemicals. And the suburbs were designed again tactically the suburbs. Not honest nature spoke for the cities. And I said, when we start coming into this, they start self-valuing when there's been wars between our countries, leaving out self-value while being used remotely too, pretending not to fathom the relativity of why. For example, Barack Obama declassified, which I think was already declassified. How Russians were and people from China were already here and were already there. While modern countries formed, a hyper-foreign was already forcing humanity to self-value groupings and simultaneous humanity voicings in individual countries. Shared tact and through and as systems tactilitarian from natures when nature is also positive onto itself. So the value of the people just because they're a career and they're a lot of things, that's one of the things we have to address. We're a certain type of victim / hyper victim. You guys were, but the child abuse is part of it, is roles, but it's also multi-front at each age and nature of campus. Measured and maintained self-value collusion / S with use / S of abridged principle treatments and natures of debate that contain roles, collusion / S, because they contain quality aspects and fact treating nature itself, and sequence shifts that are being and have been confessed, collusions with use / S of that to all the kids and to each age of adult, and where and how it has people sense and sensibilities maintained. Self-value, right where you guys don't self-value it, but you do anyway, like fighting to pretend. This isn't recorded. Please fix the fake news. Please, Trade Gowdy, do what's right. Fix the World Trade Center predicate acts of WFSB so we can get into the rest of the natures of organized crimes they have and have had with that, including with the Saudi attackers and people associated with them, with the FBI Director Robert Luskin and people named Scalora at West Hartford locations, New Britain locations, Wethersfield locations, for the people with the falsified police reports, with Wethersfield Police, intercities, intra-cities, and the state judicial branch offices, corrections offices. Joe DeMauro, Said he and others influenced people. We'll get to that. It has something to do with the judicial branch office increasingly roles with predicate acts, with facts, methods, and speaking about crimes anyway. Certain type of victim slash hyper victim. They change it fake. They want to keep this quality of fact human nature where they ask questions. In other words, and they're fishing. They know that they keep things classified even from themselves. Those truths are used for lies. They value how they have the campuses shared with all these different countries, sick fakes together, and collusion slash S. A bunch of people with a Joshua Stryker are involved with the people involved with the Russia-Ukraine narratives and natures, involved also with the World Trade Center attack, and worse thing, criminal incompetence with foreign and domestic generals involved before and after the World Trade Center attack, with the courts still, and their families and intimate ties, and the FBI and the campuses and the leaders of the campuses and their kids, and a principal child abuser involved with other families that are involved with multiple ones through the years, already proven and more recorded then and now. They have collusions. One of that principal said, Mike Levine is in it, and then he changed and pretended he made a mistake with his own name, Jim Beam. Also, there are people with the corner of Knott Street and Walcott Hill are increasingly involved with Chris Walter syntax and his roles with the intelligence families all along Route 175 from the founding locations in Old Weathersfield, involved with intelligence families near me, involved with multiple abusers of kids, leaders of kids, first forced, and more recorded then and now involved with them. Also with people involved with the elderly homes. And all kinds of investigators already being and have been used remotely, criminally, foreign influence, tactical collusions, raw, and their roles with the Board of Education, further with the Michael Emmett, and with the people with the public television, and syntax with it, and the companies involved with it. There's a Julie Morin, who is recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, brought in by others to repeat vague things, with a South Saviello and other people. His neighbors have roles with some body dumping spots years apart. And people involved with untimely deaths, with Brian Bonin and his neighbors. I don't even know all their names. And like one of his neighbors is a South Seville, like right around the corner from them. I believe that. I don't even know. I went there one time. Increasingly after that too. Then there was the kid that was there, Richard Dombrowski, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. He has wire crime acts and methods by others. Recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed that though. And he demonstrated it was true. He sought me out too. There are connections between people who sought me out to plant evidences, collusion slash S, like him, who have roles with body dumping spots and proven child abusers, leaders of kids. Identify as people I never saw him on a campus in my life. Rich Dabrowski, never saw him on a campus in my life. Sal Saviello, I saw he was in. Saw I never had a word of campus. He saw it on the other side of the classroom from me. In other words, one of the time when I came in a room, it was like a halfway introduction or something like that. And I just like nodded, said hello, and that's it. He was sitting with a Care Bear and had been arranged. Increasingly, people that do that time where you're going to walk and they make it like a halfway, they change what they're actually communicating. There's a communications racketeering, worse than war crimes here. So I called Fox Connecticut News on the phone, but the FBI director, Robert Luskin, has a Thaddeus Grabowski involved with a bunch of people from Weathersfield, also next to Fox Connecticut News with him, and with Allison Mulcahy involved too. She non-verbally, I never had a word of conversation with her. The only time I ever was around her, she sought me out to non-verbally confirm, record, confess, demonstrate, right before the 2006 district court case in Connecticut with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and his co-defendants. Thaddeus Grabowski as one of them. He was recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with a whole bunch of people through time, more and more, between campuses, involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, and differences rackets with some black KKK themed, Jewish themed, as people involved with predicate acts in my area from other areas, and their roles with police forms, forging and switching names, and sexual syntax of a female judges and prosecutors and people associated females involved with sexual and medical offenders into branch. Their motivations are recorded too, where they're just speaking through others. And that's exploited by a breaching method that shows them that they have to hide collusion /S with such and motivations screening roles. Because a breaching method motivates people to prevent others from using what's hyper-evidentially recorded. Many people have tried to speak honestly about the impositions upon people in America in the suburbs, let alone New York City, for example, and where and how our countries are forced by nature itself to be grouped values, tactical ulterior from the systems that we are forced to entertain. You guys are changing and faking why and how we're supposed to value the titles. Not just because you're worse than criminally incompetent, incapable of speaking for those differences. So you pretend to everybody, if someone says something good about them or bad about them, bullying logic. You guys can't speak for power and might. Fix the fake news of WFSB, the totally fake conversation with me and about the World Trade Center attack. They fake ties to me as doctors as a kid, now as an adult. They do this to others too. I'm only going to speak for myself though. You're going to get them the heck on paper. Get them the heck on paper.